One whole book in 365 days. Yes. Around this time of the year, you'll be seeing a lot of videos mentioning how many books someone has read in a year, and usually it ranges from 10 to 20 to 30s to even 50s and hundreds. So, aren't I so bold coming out and telling you that I read one book, not even 365 pages, in a whole year? But it wasn't always like that. I remember seeing Bill Gates' video about how he reads 50 books a year and thinking to myself, that's one book a week. That's so doable. And that wasn't out of overconfidence. That was because I could do it. I was an avid reader as a child. No Famous Five was safe from me, neither were Hardy Boys. And as I grew older, that lent into me finding Monsieur Hercule Poirot, which is Hercule Poirot in non-offensive accent, and Sherlock Holmes. I fell in love with Agatha Christie so much so that I have read everything that she's worked on. The magic of brute forcing through like the first couple of pages of a book and then finally stepping through that thin veil where you go from reading a book to experiencing it. One book that really made me feel like that, and which may prove to you that I'm not just exaggerating, used to actually be able to read, is the Dead Beautiful trilogy by Yon Woon. I read the first book, I read the second book. The third book wasn't out and I had to wait. But when it was released, a friend of mine bought it and very graciously lent it to me. But the catch was that I had to read it over one weekend, 400 pages. So, what did I do? I did it. I read it. I read all the 400 pages. And it wasn't hard because I didn't have to like sit down and force myself to read it and be like, oh no, I have to give it back. I should read it. I experienced that book. When Renee got into Gottfried Academy, I felt the chills when she described how cold it felt there. I felt the dampness of her hair on my shoulders when she was running late to her classes. Such an avid reader I was that I had come to the conclusion that the fantasy world is objectively better than the real world. Then what happened? I am not quite so sure myself. The thrillers just suddenly weren't thrilling enough. The fantasies weren't as fantastic. And I stopped reading. I did find other hobbies though, of course, like writing and this crazy thing called short form content and the sweet instant gratification it gave me. Why would I read a book when I could feel all the emotion that I would ever want to feel within 5 minutes, just 10 scrolls away, and I didn't have to even do anything? Of course, it didn't do me any good, and I still thought of myself as a reader, an illusion that would break so fast when a friend of mine gave me The Alchemist to read, and I could not get past the first two pages. And you might argue that maybe it was because that just wasn't my book. The Truth About Keeping Secrets by Savannah Brown is a book that I was dying to read. And when I got it, I just couldn't read it. I just couldn't sit down and get through that brute force phase. It just wasn't happening. The magic just wasn't there. So I stopped pretending that I had any desire to read. I wanted to consume, of course, but I wanted it to be so passive that it's almost shoved onto me. I'm not even seeking it out. But somewhere amidst all of this, I found this idea of 1% progress. The idea of improving atomically but steadily, building sustainable habits that you grow over a long period of time, and the idea of delayed gratification. Ding, 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 ding. Something clicked, and I just had to read it. So I did. I read Atomic Habits, and as all the cliches go out there, it changed my life. I read it in like 2021 and 2022, way later than I should have, by the way. But it was the first book in like 3-4 years that I was able to sit down and read completely. The idea clicked so much that I made it a handbook of undertaking any skill, whether it be my health, my job, my hobbies, my grades, anything. I graduated with an 8.5 GPA and a job in my hand. My health was at its best that it has ever been. I figured out life. Great. Wait, why were we here? Oh, yeah, books about that. Having a corporate life sucked. the soul out of me. Working 10 to 12-hour days for 6 days a week didn't leave much room for self improvement, let me tell you that much. In hindsight, I now believe it was an important phase for me to go through because it made me improve so much so quickly that I was able to switch into a way better job in all aspects. I wasn't as stressed anymore, but something still wasn't quite right. I still couldn't read. What the so so I thought, let's pick up something that I already know I like. So I picked up Agatha Christie books. I read two of her books this year. Breeze, went through it like nothing. Hot knife on butter. But that doesn't count because picking up anything new was still impossible. Savannah Brown's book wouldn't budge. Shoe Dog made me cringe so much, and don't even get me started on The Courage to be Disliked. Imagine you learned how to ride a bicycle when you were a child. You rode a bicycle all your childhood, and suddenly in adulthood you have all the means to ride a bicycle and you want to ride a bicycle. You've forgotten the one skill everyone points to, that it just comes naturally to them once they've learned it. Then at last, I stopped trying to prove a point to myself and went on the hunt for something very simple yet interesting to read, which is when I found Before the Coffee Gets Cold. I read through the first couple of pages of it, and then suddenly, like magic, I was in that cafe. I could see the two lovers sitting there navigating that uncomfortable conversation. I could smell the coffee, I could hear the people rustling, I could hear the clanking of cups. I could hear the clang dong of the door every time it opened. But still not reaching for my phone every time I had downtime. It was difficult. So what I did, I just kept the book next to my bed, and I did not give myself any goal that I'm going to read this much a day. I just decided that whenever I have downtime right before bed, I'm going to grab the book and I'm going to read just as much as I can bear to in that moment. I bought this book back in like September. So yeah, I really took my time with it, which is even embarrassing to say it out loud. It's 200 pages, by the way. But I did it. I finished it, start to end. And I wish I was lying here, but I feel proud of being able to say that. And it gave me so much confidence that I started working out again. So what changed? I think a lot of factors went into it, but I think most of all, I lifted the pressure of just being able to do this of myself. I wasn't reading for the facade of being a reader. I was interested in the story. I really wanted to see it unfold. And as I read one page, 2 page, a chapter, another chapter, and then finally I finished the book. The delayed gratification that I finally felt, it didn't even feel difficult because I was genuinely interested in the story. Another thing that really helped me was committing to the least possible fraction. Just having the book next to my bed and grabbing it before going to bed. Of course, it didn't always feel great having to put it back down that I've read like for 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes, 15 minutes. But I saw that bookmark moving through the pages. That visual indicator also I think helped a lot, having that bookmark that was moving through the books, through the pages. I remember when like one day I picked up the book and the bookmark was like halfway through the book and I was like, oh, I have actually read a good chunk of it. Let's do just a simple math experiment. Imagine a person reads a book a month. Book a month is 12 books a year. Now imagine they're able to do that for 80 years of their life. That's 960 books. So what's one book to 1,000? I think to me, as dramatic as this is gonna sound right now, this one book was proof that I'm not as far gone as I felt I was, and all these studies coming out about how short form content has ruined you forever and there is nothing you can do about it. I can be saved. I think the Atomic Habit explains it so well. The vote you need to cast for yourself to show that you are capable of doing it. It's exactly what I needed to bring that confidence back in myself. I'm not one for New Year's resolution, but maybe next year I'm making the same video and I've read 2 books. I think that would be a win. If you've read Dead Beautiful, I need to talk to you because I have not seen anyone just out and about who has read Dead Beautiful. So if you are one of those people, we need to talk. Most importantly, Happy New Year, and I hope you're doing well.